Alrighty, so we are going to continue, inshallah, with Imam al Ghazali's 18th advice. So we finished, the last one was 17, but it felt like it was so many. It took such a long time because there was, 8 different benefits there that Hatim al-Assam he mentioned. But here we're going to, inshallah, go over advice number 18, which Imam al Ghazali has given. And the theme is actually something completely different from the previous ones. If you want, y'all can sit up here if you want to, or you can keep the wall. It's fine, no worries. So the theme of this advice is actually something unique so far. Like, he hasn't brought up this topic at all up until this point. And that theme is the importance of having someone that you can identify in your life as being like a mentor or a teacher. And this is something that when we look at outside of the Islamic realm, we're very accustomed to this. Like, this is something that we're very used to. Does anyone here have any like internships? Anyone here internship or anything? Yeah. Or like if you are studying at school, sometimes, you have obviously your classes that you're taking, but you typically will have like a professor or somebody that you can like get a letter of recommendation from or reference letter from. And that kind of mentorship is something that is really invaluable. If you want to get a job or graduate and go to some sort of post-grad school, like a master's program or something, having that mentorship is something that it actually saves you a lot of stress, a lot of headache, and a lot of money. And because people who have gone through experiences can give you guidance, right? And so when it comes to Islam, the idea of having that mentor, that teacher, is something that is actually completely and totally critical. It's not a choice. It's not like, oh, I'll do it if I can, or I'll do it if I have time. Having that relationship is something that is absolutely indispensable. Okay. And so he begins by talking about what it means to have a teacher. And then he starts to say, what should you look for in a teacher? Like, not everyone's a teacher, right? And in this age, especially like on the internet and stuff, not everyone should be the person that you seek advice from. There are certain qualifications and certain conditions that scholars have given from 1,000 years ago, as far as like, who are the people that you should actually place your trust in, because your faith is the most valuable thing that you have. And so he begins by saying that, let me clarify for you what the travelers on this path should do regarding their teacher. He says every traveler should have a sheikh, or what's also called a murshid, which is like a spiritual guide or a teacher, to instruct them and also to cleanse them of the negative characteristics, the bad manners that they have through the process of tarbiyah. And he describes tarbiyah, and he says that tarbiyah is like a farmer or a gardener that goes into their gardening patch or their garden, and they start to pull out the weeds or the thorns from the garden that could be problematic. I actually did that this morning, oddly enough. In my rose bush, we have these weeds that are growing, and you have to go and you have to extract them, right? Now, tell me a little bit about that. Anyone here garden before, ever? Yeah? Okay. All right. So what's gardening like? It's a lot of work. Okay. So how? Okay. Okay. So it's a lot of work to garden. And so when you translate that analogy to like your practice of religion with your teacher, it's important to understand that when you look to someone for advice and you ask questions, right? If someone comes up to me after and I have a question and they ask something, it's not like an easy process, right? The process of being refined and being purified and being kind of like, grown. Tarbiyah literally means to grow something, to mentor something. It requires a lot of effort and a lot of work. And just like anything that requires work, it takes time. Many people think that when they engage with Islamic practice, that it changes them automatically overnight. And that's actually not the case. In fact, if somebody does feel that way, then typically it's unsustainable and they're going to snap right back out of it. So he starts to compare the sheikh or the murshid or the ustad or whoever in the life of a person to the farmer. What's something else that you realize about being purified from something? What else in this analogy of gardening or of cleansing or cleaning? Describe. What is it like to clean something? Yeah.
Well, in terms of gardening, it requires a lot of patience.
Okay, good. It requires patience on behalf of the gardener and the garden, right? Because the garden takes time itself. So you have to have patience. It's not something that happens overnight. What else?
Consistent.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Like you have to go back and look after your, the flowers or whatever you're planting every day or like every week. So it's not just like you plant something and it's just like never put back in.
Very good. And you have to actually, some plants even require watering like numerous times throughout the day. If you're growing grass, you have to water it pretty much like 4 or 5, especially in Texas. And it depends on the environment. So much of your growth as a person depends on the environment that you're in or the environment that you put yourself in. And so if I'm going to expect this class, soul food, okay, I'm coming on Thursdays, I'm going to become a better person. Well, the reality is that watering 1 time a week is not sufficient for any plant, right? So if this is the only thing that a person does, it's good. It's better than nothing. But there are other elements of practice that have to be implemented in order for all this stuff to work, right? Even my son Musa is 4, he knows. It's not just water, it's not just sun, it's not just soil, it's all 3. So Allah mentions the analogy of faith in the Quran. It's actually the name where roots comes from. Asluha thabit wa far'uha fis sama. That its roots are strong, and as a result, its branches reach to the sky. Your branches won't be able to grow unless your roots are firm, and your firm roots require nourishment. Okay, so that's another good point. It requires consistency. What else?
It seems to me, regardless of how much energy or input or things you put, there are external factors that you don't have control over.
Okay, good. What do you mean by that?
In the sense where you can put all your energy into it, and it doesn't pan out the way you want it to pan out, or your flowers don't bud the way you want it to bud.
Yeah.
There are things that you might not see up front that are like in hindsight you might realize later on.
Very good.
So that might just take I don't know the word for it, but
Okay.
that needs a little bit of extra care.
Good. Okay. Excellent. Sisters, we're talking about the process of farming and how the analogy of farming is being used to talk about developing somebody, making them better. So he's talking now about how everybody in Islam has to have like a mentor or a teacher that they reach out to. Is it okay? Can I ask, is it okay if the guys scoot over this way and if the sisters kind of come this way? You don't have to get off the wall, but can you, You can sit on the wall, it's fine, but can we get on the wall over here? Just I can't see any of y'all. Like if the sisters don't mind. Like there's a lot of wall over there. You guys are more than welcome to take the wall. That's fine. All right? Just because I can't see y'all. So if anyone like raises their hand and stuff. Okay, so he's talking now about this idea of gardening, and the other analogy that he gives for tarbiyah, for purification, is washing something, is scrubbing something. Who does the dishes here? Good, mashallah. Who has ever done the dishes before? All right. Who left a bowl of cereal in the sink overnight? And then it was like cement, right? Or like if you cook something and on the bottom of it, like if you boil milk, and on the bottom of the pot, it's part of the pot now, right? It's like in there. And it's actually very interesting, subhanAllah, because there's so much analogy when you talk about cleaning substance versus cleaning the heart. The reality is that cleaning substance, sometimes you require what? What does it require? Force. Yeah, you have to use actually like your muscles. What else? What's better, hot water or cold water for cleaning something? Hot water. Actually, this is really funny. I have my mom is Egyptian, and I don't know what it is about Egyptian like women, but like they lose like their nerves in their hands, so they don't like feel heat anymore. So I actually have Sheikh Omar, mashallah. So I actually have like this joke in my household, this running joke that hot water doesn't bother me, because I when I wash the dishes, I turn the water all the way on hot and I leave it there. And I'm the recipient of so much negative dua from my family, because when they turn it on, they just burn their hands. Man, what's your issue? What's your problem? So this is something, but you need to use hot water in order to clean surfaces, right? Cold water sometimes doesn't help get rid of that residue. Even the material that you're using, can you use like a cashmere blanket, or like can you use like a nice fleece blanket to wash? No, you can't. Why? Because soft materials don't get that sticky stuff off of the stainless steel. Sometimes you have to use some really rough stuff, right? Steel wool or something really harsh. But all of that is used to achieve what goal? The hot water, the force, the rough. What is it used to achieve? Cleanliness, purity. So when Imam Ghazali here is talking about this idea of purification and how difficult it is, what do we take from that principle is what? Sometimes purification is not very pleasant. It's not like the most pleasant experience. You know, anyone here exercise or workout, right? In the first 10 minutes, you hate your life. All right, halfway through it, you're like, what have I done? And then when you're done with the workout, you're like, that actually was very fulfilling. That was very satisfying. Even though I'm sore, even though I'm tired, even though I'm sweaty, I need a shower, I feel good. Faith is very similar to that experience. And Imam Ghazali is saying that here. Whether a person is gardening, and the gardener, when they're gardening, they hate gardening, right? Like when you have weeds in your garden, you have thorns, all that, it's a very annoying process. But then what happens? When you stand back and look at it after you've cleaned everything out and the rose bushes are alone and the fruit is growing and all that, the gardener says, wow, look at how worth it was. All right, you hate cutting grass in 105-degree Texas heat, but when you stand back and see your nice lawn lines, right, you're like, how worth it was it? Okay, so he says it's absolutely essential for everybody to have that person who can help scrub them, to have that person who can help prune them and clean their weeds. If you don't have that person in your life, a pot can't clean itself, a garden can't clean itself, and you can't clean yourself, right? In that way, in the spiritual way. So then he continues, and he says that the follower of the path requires a teacher in order to improve their character and to guide them upon the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have you guys ever had a moment where you thought you were absolutely correct until someone showed you like a mirror? Anybody? Can you share that story? Mathaf, you were like really feeling it as you were nodding. So can you share that story?
Because it was with you.
Oh, dang. That's awkward.
I think there was a time during coffee talk that you like asked a question, I said something confidently, and you were like, not so much. No, I'm just gonna shut up for the rest of my life.
Stuck for a lot.
It was a good humbling moment.
Stuck for a lot. No, I didn't mean it like that. But
No, I know.
But you know what's funny is that the only reason why probably I even am in that position or whatever is like that happened to me millions of times, right? Like the I'll never forget, man. Subhanallah, I'll never forget. Sheikh Omar here, Omar Bajwa, he's actually, mashallah, a chaplain at Yale. So he's in town visiting, and he does college chaplaincy full time at Yale. You guys know the prestigious institution, mashallah. And not only that, but he has like over a decade of experience doing it. So he works with college students. So we were at dinner last night, and he's like, yeah, I'd love to stop by and see. And I was like, man, I hope not. It's kind of embarrassing. But he's here, alhamdulillah, for a wedding and to see some friends. So, welcome, Sheikh Omar, Jazakallah khairan. And he could probably share and do this session a lot better than I can, but I won't put him on the spot because, I know that whenever I travel somewhere and someone does it to me, I'm like scrambling. But what I will say is this, I'll never forget in one time, and Sheikh Omar, you probably have stories just like this, where I was actually at lunch with some of my senior individuals in my life, people who were teachers of mine, right? And they were discussing something that was a little bit sensitive, and I spoke up and said something, like I offered my opinion. And at the time I was like 24. Okay, so it was like almost 10 years ago. And I was there in front of like really knowledgeable people, like shuyukh and stuff who knew what they were talking about, really knowledgeable people. And one of my teachers, he looked at me and he's like, come outside. And so we went outside, and I thought, like, what's the big deal? Like, people were talking about a certain topic, and I just kind of offered my opinion and whatever. Now, everyone at the table was like double my age. And I was like, I think this. And as soon as I said that, my teacher was like, come with me. And we went outside, and we walked around the parking lot. And there's those conversations where unless you hear the audio, you don't know that the person's being just destroyed. Like, it just looks normal, just looks like two people talking, but then you hear it and you're like, that person's just being, the floor is being mopped with them. That's what was happening to me. He was like, why are you even talking right now? right? And he's like, you can't even grammatically dissect an Arabic sentence, and you're trying to like offer your opinion on it. It was a really nuanced issue. It's like someone asking you like, hey, how do you think we should treat this cancer? And there's like 17 doctors, like oncologists together, and you're like, I heard turmeric helps. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, what are you talking about? Like you're not even qualified to be here, and you feel the confidence. So I remember going through that moment, right? And I remember being very embarrassed. Like, I remember feeling very low. You know what I mean? And I'm like by nature, I'm like an unfortunately confident person. And for me to feel that lowness is like a very strange feeling. But I'll tell you something, dude, it was one of the most necessary experiences of my life. Like till today, I mean, think about this, y'all. It's 10 years later and I'm telling you that story. It is so necessary sometimes to be humbled. It is so necessary. And no one can humble you except that you look at that person in a position that they can give that to you, right? Because if I just told that guy, man, forget you, then you know what the problem is? He goes on and lives his life and he's fine. He doesn't care about me. Like, he doesn't need me, right? But if I have the humility to say, you know what, I actually really needed that. Like, I really needed that. And I appreciate that this person cared enough for me to talk to me instead of allowing me to continue looking like a little fool in front of all these really qualified, very smart, very educated people. And I'm sitting there offering my turmeric, advice. So sometimes that cleansing is a really, really tough process. But you look back, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years later, and you realize that had that not happened, your trajectory would have been totally different, right? You guys have a moment like that in your life where somebody set you straight and you're like, thank goodness they did. At that time, you hated it. It was very difficult. But afterwards, you're like, alhamdulillah. So Imam al Ghazali talks about that. And you have to have that kind of willingness to be corrected, okay, to be guided, so that your character can be made right. And then he continues and he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah sent the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to guide people. And when he passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he left people to guide people. So what does that mean? All of this stuff that we're doing right now, like, I'm not making it up, and my teachers didn't make it up, and their teachers didn't make it up. Like, you guys are sitting in a gathering where you are actually receiving the very same substance that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the companions, right? And it sucks for me to be in that position, and it sucks for you to have me be that person to you. But it is pretty amazing that Allah has designed this entire system that we are the recipients of the water that came from Jibreel to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam all the way trickled down to us. So this is not some light stuff here. This is pretty serious. So when you engage in a relationship with a teacher and you'd say to that person, can you help guide me? If I have questions, can I ask you those questions? If I need guidance, can you give me direction in those moments of my life? It's not just that you're asking a person to give you like, investment advice, crypto, Dogecoin or not, you're asking a person to help connect you to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's a big deal, right? You talk about networking being important. That is the networking. That is the most critical network you can be a part of. And so he says that, and after that, he left representatives and successors in his place so that they could direct people towards Allah. The condition now of the teacher. Okay, now here we go. This is really serious stuff. What's the condition of the teacher? What do you guys look for in someone who can give you advice? Oh, good. Okay, what is wisdom? Someone else. Define wisdom for us. Some of the sisters that I moved over there to the wall. To this wall, because they were on that wall. See, the sisters are smart. They came and took the wall. Now when the brothers are complaining about their backs, the sisters are chilling. All right? Okay. What's wisdom? Very good. There's a beautiful Arabic saying that says, don't ask the smart person, ask the experienced one. Don't ask the one who is wise alone based on theory. Ask the one who has been through it. Right? Because knowledge and wisdom are two different things. Right? Knowledge, very famously, is what? Knowing that fire is? Okay, not enough people. You guys get burned a lot, don't you? Okay. Knowledge is knowing that fire is what? Hot. Wisdom is knowing what? Don't touch it. right? That's why you have a little baby. You can tell them that the stove is hot. Like Nooni, my daughter, Iman, we call her Nooni. She's 2.5. She knows. My wife literally, wallahi, just texted me. Says, man, Nooni did it again. She's very destructive, man. She's very destructive. Not like really destructive, like no insurance claims are made, but like she's destructive enough, you know? She like empties out tubes of toothpaste, you know, like that kind of destructive. You leave her for 1 second, it's done. Like if she smells like peppermint, you're like, oh, that's nice. Oh no. And you realize something is amiss, like something is wrong. So as soon as I left, wallahi, this happened today, right before I came. I saw my wife was using some lotion and she was like lotioning her arms and her legs and whatever. And she left the lotion on the bed. And I looked at that lotion and I said, that's in reach. Like, that's what I was thinking. I was like, that's in reach. But I had to go. And my wife texted me and she goes, man, Nooni just dumped that whole bottle of lotion out on the bed. And she's like, man, this girl, you leave her for like 90 seconds and you regret it. It leads to like an hour of cleanup, right? And subhanAllah, so Iman knows that that lotion is something that you only put on your skin. She knows that that's what it's for. But she doesn't have the wisdom to understand that when you make that mistake, it leads to a lot of cleanup. And that's kind of like us too, right? We're all chuckling because she's 2, but how many mistakes do we make? We don't realize it leads to a lot of cleanup. And sometimes the cleanup has to be done by somebody else. That's why sometimes, you know, our parents, our siblings, our older friends in our life, they might tell us something and it seems harsh, but they know that if we do that, it's going to lead to a lot of cleanup, right? I can't